Hello. How's it going, everybody? So today we are talking about something that we have been asked a few times, but we had somebody specifically pose this question as soon as we were getting ready to get off of our Facebook Live last week. So we wanted to address this specifically. So if you have a dog that displays a certain behavior when they know that you're leaving the house, specifically like they get super overexcited, start acting crazy, maybe are even acting aggressively, like biting or jumping on the couch, knocking stuff over, running through the house, rebellious type of behavior or aggressive. That's what I'm going to be talking a little bit about today. If you have never signed into one of these Facebook Lives on our page, I'm Eric. And I'm with the Dog Psychology and Training Center. So I'm going to try and keep this brief, but I want to cover a few different things. So your dog, if your dog is acting this way, overexcited or aggressive every time you leave the house, almost always that's going to be rooted in the idea that they think they are in charge. They are trying to boss you around, and we kind of joke with our clients and we say that this is the King Joffrey complex. If you have seen Game of Thrones really at all, you probably know who King Joffrey is. He was a very young teenager who became king and had some serious personality flaws that he acted upon because he was never really he was put in a position where he was on a throne and he had a lot of authority, and he abused that to the point of like having people put to death for very, very little inappropriate things, things that people should never be punished severely for. So we kind of joke that some dogs have a King Joffrey complex, right? We as dog owners sometimes do things that kind of confuse the pack hierarchy in your home. So your dogs, in my opinion, should always be under the people, right? So if you've got, mom and dad, teenagers, toddlers, dogs are always down here, right? And then they are going to have their own hierarchy, right? And that can change. That can change from week to week or even from day to day in some circumstances. But it's very important that our dogs realize that they're under all the people. All the people in the house are above them in the hierarchy. Because when your dog has a King Joffrey complex, they think that they're up here. And what that causes is your dog to want to take control of situations. And when they see something or they're presented with a conflict or any kind of situation, they just act impulsively because if they're in charge, that's what they would do, right? If they were in a pack in the wild or in a home, whoever is the pack leader is just going to act, right? And then everyone else follows. But when your dog understands that you are their leader and they trust you and they look to you, then when they are presented with the situation, they should look to you as they would the pack leader if it was a pack of wolves out in the wild or a pack of feral dogs that stayed together or a pack of dogs in your home, right? They're going to look to the leader before they just act out, right? If you see a pack of dogs or wolves in the wild, you don't see, you know who the leader is, and you don't see the ones in the back just come up and start doing some super bold stuff because that would be very disrespectful for them to just take charge and take the lead when there is a known respected leader, right? So when your dog, a lot of what we do with our training is communicate to both the dog and the humans how to maintain an appropriate pack hierarchy, right? You need to be your dog's leader, because when you achieve that healthy relationship and your dog looks to you whenever they are not sure exactly what's an appropriate action, then you can guide them without having to divert their attention away from something that's probably very interesting or distracting or intense, right? They instinctively look to you. So a couple things that you can do right away to start alleviating some of this activity. If you have a dog that's super overexcited or aggressive when you go to leave the house, one, crate them because they're going to be a danger to you and yourself if they're not crated and they're acting this way. And you want to crate them when you're gone, but you want to crate them before you go to walk out the door, right? Because once your dog's in that mode, that's going to be a much harder situation to get them in their crate if they're acting aggressively, biting at you, jumping on you, just flying through the house. It's going to be a lot harder to get them in their crate once they already know that you're leaving. So maybe 15, 20 minutes before you are ready to leave, maybe a half an hour before you're ready to leave, calmly put them in their crate. And anytime that you're putting your dog in their crate or taking them out, because we want that to be a calm experience. We don't ever want to use the crate to punish our dogs, right? So there are ways of disciplining your dog or teaching them that a action or behavior is appropriate or not appropriate. I don't feel that the crate should be an outlet for that. So don't ever put your dog in the crate mean or aggressive or when you're really upset as a punishment, right? Because that's going to create a negative association with the crate. We want our dogs to have a very positive association with their crate because it should be their sanctuary. That should be their safe place, like your room, like your kid or your teenager's room. That's their safe place. That's where they can go if they need to decompress, if they just need some time to think some things through, or just not be bothered for a period of time. That's what the crate should be for your dog as well. A safe place they can go to just not be bothered if they need to. And when you need to put them in their crate, they have more of a calmer mindset about it. So put them in their crate calmly. And same thing. And that sometimes the reason that our dogs, if it's overexcitedness, when you go to leave, there's always the thought, maybe I'm going to get to go with them. Or maybe if I, really get their attention and they realize that I want to go, maybe they'll take me. Or maybe it's just a defiant thing. Like, I don't want you to go, so I'm going to act this way. But if we have them in their crate before you start doing your routine, if that's putting your shoes on and grabbing the keys, like our dogs pick up on these routines that we have whenever we go to do certain things. And leaving is a super, super common one. Our dogs build very strong associations very easily. So things as little as going to your one specific drawer that your keys are in, or your wallet, or opening up the little cabinet on the wall that has your keys in it. Like, your dogs know this is mom's leaving or dad's leaving, or he's going for his run. He's got his jogging shoes on. So before you get into that routine, that's going to trigger the thought in your dog's head, it's time to go, or mom or dad's leaving, just put them in their crate calmly, right? So that's going to alleviate a lot of the opportunity for them going haywire when you go to leave the house. Another thing that I would suggest is having a leash on them all the time, right? And I know some people, when I say have a leash on your dog all the time, your dog's doing these certain behaviors. I think the perception of that is like, why do I need to have a leash on my dog all the time? Like, I'm not walking them, so that doesn't really make sense. But when you have a leash on your dog, specifically if you've got these kind of problems or you're trying to work on a behavior, having a leash on your dog allows you to be able to get control of them if you need to. So if your dog does not have a leash on them and they're running all around the house and they're going crazy and you're trying to get control of them, it's going to be very, very hard to do that, especially if they're acting aggressively. If they're biting at all and you don't have a leash on, unless you're a skilled handler, and even then, you're putting yourself at risk. and you're drawing out this process of trying to gain control of them. And the longer that process takes, the more your dog's winning, right? In their mind, it's probably fun, it's exciting, and they're winning. So if we're trying to change behavior, if they are always getting positive from doing a behavior, then they're going to keep doing it more and more and more. But if we can eliminate the behavior or make that behavior only happen for a shorter period of time, like we can gradually eliminate the behavior, right? So even when you're still working on this, you're in the process of putting some things into place and trying to build some routines that are going to eliminate this kind of behavior. While they're still doing it, if they only have a short period of time to act crazy before you can grab their leash and get them under control, then you're going to be able to break that habit a lot faster than if you go another couple weeks or months trying to deal with this problem, but they run around the house for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes while you're trying to chase them, and it becomes a game, right? Dogs prey drive. They love being chased or chasing. So that's like one of the funnest games for dogs to play. Sometimes it's just chasing. So you don't want to allow that kind of thing to happen when your dog's acting inappropriately, because they're essentially being rewarded for that. So having a leash on your dog, and this can just be your 6-foot leash that you would take your dog on a walk with, right? It gives you something that you can grab onto without having to grab your dog's collar or physically get your dog to control them. And then even then, you're going to have a harder time to guide them or put them in their crate in that situation, or do anything with them if you just got them by the collar versus a leash. So put them in your crate, I would say 15, 20, maybe even 30 minutes before you're ready to leave. That's going to allow them to not only not get into a super excited state before you put them in the crate, but it's also going to allow them to a little bit of time to relax and chill out, so that when you go to leave, they're in a calmer state. And keep in mind, like if you're working through this and you find that the crate is a super valuable tool for this, it's still going to take some time before they don't trigger into that mindset initially when you go to leave the house. So even if you've got your dog in the crate 30 minutes before you go to leave, when you start your leaving the house routine or you go to open the door, if they can hear you or see you, they're probably still going to kind of get aroused by that. So basically just ignore them. Ignore them. Don't feed into that arousal. Don't talk to them. Don't look at them. Don't give them any sort of attention through that. And that's going to help that just gradually fizzle out, right? So if you go to leave the house and you've already got them in their crate, you're taking the right step there. Kudos to you. The next step is don't feed that arousal. If you open up the door and they get crazy, don't go, "Oh, it's okay, buddy. I'm just going to be gone for 20 minutes. It's all right." Don't get yourself worked up, because they're getting all this attention and you're feeding energy into them. But if you just stay calm and you ignore them, then they're going to be, over time, over days and weeks of you being calm, they have in their mind, Mom's going to go open up the door. She's going to walk out and she's going to stay calm. Like, I'm not going to get any reaction out of running circles in my crate or pawing at the crate or panting excessively or barking or any of that stuff. Like, I'm not going to get any reaction out of her. Your dog will realize that if you maintain that consistency. And so those are the two quick, easy things that anyone who owns a crate and a leash with their dog can do today. And if you don't own a crate and a leash and you're having any kind of behavioral problems with your dog, I would recommend tomorrow, go out, get a crate and a leash, right? So you can start doing this stuff right now. And if you're having any issues with I'm reading Andrea's question. Instead of crating them, is it okay to just gate them into a room with their crate? Because we do that. Dog most of the time so they can move around. I'm going to say no. I would not recommend that, especially since you're already experiencing these kind of behaviors. Having your dog in their crate is going to, they have a lot less options, a lot less things that they can occupy their mind with, a lot less ways that they can hurt themselves or the things in your house if they're in their crate. And it's going to encourage them to actually chill out and go into a calmer state of mind. If they've got a whole room to roam and they are in that mindset, they're not going to as quickly just fizzle out. Whereas if they're in their crate, they're probably going to be a lot more likely to fizzle out quicker, and that's going to again just help move toward a calmer mindset in general when you're going to leave. I think that, and that's going to be my recommendation for almost any dog, any family. Once your dog gets to a certain point in their training and dogs get a little bit old, I mean, our Mastiff, we don't crate her. She's 10 years old. We don't crate her anymore. We crated her basically for the first 9 years of her life, almost always, right? When we were gone or sleeping. So that's something that, no, I don't think that for your dog's entire life they need to be crated, but especially when you've got a young dog and they have behavioral problems, having a strong crate protocol is going to help you tremendously, more than I could explain in this video without going super, super long. And maybe that's another video that we could do, like to address a number of the different benefits to having your dog appropriately crate trained. And that's great that they have access to the crate in their specific area that's gated. But I would say for this, get them in the crate. And I would say at nighttime also. Let me know if you have any other questions about that. And one other thing that I just wanted to mention, and so like aggressive behavior means something different to a lot of people who will use that term. So if your dog is just, nipping and nibbling and putting their mouth on you and jumping kind of rough, I wouldn't necessarily call that aggressive, but I think what Andrea was talking about was a little bit more than that. And to what degree, I'm not entirely sure, but I will say if your dog is legitimately acting aggressive or reactive to where they have bitten, or you think that they might bite you or someone else or another animal, I would seek the help of a professional. At least reach out to somebody, tell them what you've got going on, and find out if it's something that needs to be addressed. Likely, if your dog is acting that way and you have those thoughts about your dog, that probably needs to be addressed sooner than later. Because without having that behavior addressed, it's almost always going to escalate if it's not addressed appropriately. Because once your dog has King Joffrey complex, every time they act out that way, they are rewarded by that behavior, right? So it's not just going to turn itself around. Let's see, I got another one. Goes into the crate for the night. Now we are getting another puppy in March. Should they both be crated at night, to be fair? Yeah, so you're getting a puppy soon. Yes, I would crate them both, and I would crate them separately. And not necessarily to be fair per se, but just because I think that's going to be best for both dogs to be crated when you're gone and at night. And absolutely for the puppy, for all the same reasons, like times 10. But also a couple of things just to consider when you're crating dogs. You have multiple dogs and you're crating them. I would recommend always have them separate in their own crate. And ideally, they wouldn't be, you know, butted right up against each other. They'd have some space, you know, if they're going to be in the same room, that's not always a bad thing, but have some space in between them. And oftentimes having some sort of barrier where they can't see each other is usually good practice. That's just going to eliminate the potential for any kind of negative behaviors oftentimes toward each other, or just them feeding off any kind of negative or too intense energy. And like I said, their crate should be their sanctuary. So the less distractions or sounds or anything that they have when they're in that space, the safer and more comfortable that they will feel to rest or to just have time to themselves. So like the opposite side of that would be if you, and I'm just going to give kind of a more extreme scenario to make my point. If you had 4 or 5 dogs all crated separately, all in the same room, and they were all in close proximity and could see each other, every time one of them would stand up or chew on their bone or whatever, or if they're looking at the other dogs, like that's just things that would make you feel a little bit less comfortable and safe and chill in your crate. So kind of an analogy that we use sometimes, like living in a glass house. If there's no barrier around and there's a lot of eyes in a room or things going on, it's just less relaxing. So before I get too super long-winded on anything, I'm going to cut myself off, and I'm going to encourage you to share this with anyone that you think it may be beneficial to. Click the little 3 dots up in the upper right corner of your screen and subscribe to our Facebook Lives so that you can get a little ping next time we go live. And if you have a topic that you'd like Crystal and or myself to discuss on an upcoming Facebook Live, put a comment in there and we'll put it on our queue. All right. See ya, everybody. Happy birthday, Andrea. Hasta luego. See ya.